On today's episode, Shrek 5 and a Donkey spinoff with all the original cast is coming back. There's brand new trailers for the Barbie movie, brand new trailer for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. We've got a release date, at least a release time frame for the John Wick spinoff, Ballerina. Yes, that's what it's called, Ballerina. The WGA is getting ready for an authorization to strike vote coming out. Harry Potter's getting rebooted as a series. That and a whole bunch more. The John Campea Show starts right now. Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel, brought to you in part by our friends at Mint Mobile. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, as we have you joining us as we talk about our favorite things, movies, movie news, TV, and streaming, giving you information and context, so the next time you're talking to your buddies about the movies, you'll know more than they do. I am not sitting here alone. Over here, we got Ray Ora getting ready for his midnight screening of the Mario Brothers tonight. Sitting back there, we got a very happy Taylor Gonzalez. We'll talk about that in a bit. Right in front of him, running the show today is Jonathan Voico. The delightful Chris Carr is here. And most importantly, you guys are here. Thanks so much for joining us here today. And here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to break it down into two parts. First part of the show, we're going to talk about some predetermined topics. Second part of the show, we're going to take your questions that you guys send in anytime 24/7 to our template simply at streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip. Send in your questions anytime and see it in an upcoming video like right now today. All right. With all that down, guys, I just got to say again, Mario Brothers tonight. I'm very excited to watch this movie, but it's kind of an interesting night because I got two things going on. I got Mario Brothers, and then after a midnight screening of Mario Brothers, I'm going to stay up and watch Mandalorian, of course. And this was not scripted. This wasn't planned. Can we talk for a second about Mandalorian? I feel like we're in a very unique and new ground for a Mandalorian series. Because what do we got left here? We got 3 episodes. Mm-hmm. There are a number of things about Mandalorian this season that I have liked very much. But there's also been elements of Mandalorian this season has been, right, who wrote this sort of thing? And I'm not accustomed to that because the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian I adored. I adore the first 2 seasons. Even when people were crap talking on season 2 before they got up to the Luke stuff, I was like, are you kidding me? This season's great. Been really excited about it. And you come across shows like Last of Us and House of the Dragon, all that kind of stuff, where you get to about 3 or 4 episodes left and you're like, the last 3 or 4 episodes could suck and it doesn't matter. This show has been so good up to this point. We're always going to remember it as a good show. And of course, those ones also stuck the landing. Here's where we're in a unique situation right now with Mandalorian, I feel like the next 3 episodes, the final 3 episodes, is going to kind of determine whether or not we look back on Mandalorian season 3 as if it was good or not. I really feel like it's kind of in the balance right now. I feel like we're 5 episodes in and I feel like it could go either way. I mean, if they maintain the quality they've had all the way through to the end, I'll go, yeah, it was my least favorite season of Mandalorian, but I liked it. I liked season 3, you know what I mean? But if they just have like 1 or 2 stinker episodes here, it's going to end up being, I liked 2 episodes of Mandalorian, I didn't like another. I don't know, you feeling the same or how you feel about these final 3 episodes? It's a little hit or miss.
I mean, this is the Star Wars that I very much enjoy, but this season has been a little, okay. I also don't think it bodes well that there is this constant, oh shit, Mandalorian's on. Like, I genuinely keep forgetting this season, whereas the previous 2, I've been so excited each and every time. I don't know. They usually stick the landing, though. I've got faith in the fellas. I think they can do it.
I hope so. I mean, I really do. It's just, again, some of the things have been fantastic. Like, I've been really excited about a number of things they've done. And I even appreciate everybody's craps on the one with the scientist, that episode where they kind of do the side story. I actually appreciate it. I mean, I don't think they executed it well, but I appreciated that they were trying to make the world of Mandalorian a little deeper and a little richer by having these side stories as well. I mean, it's
a very Andor episode.
It made that lady make sense. I mean, if they didn't have that episode, like her appearance in the last episode.
Yeah, it made her make sense, but was it enough?
I've been fairly entertained by this season. It's just as good as the rest of them to me. I mean, I don't really judge on a high, thing. Like
listen. TV and movies are experiential events. You don't need to judge it on any kind of level. If it is creating the experience for you, that's all that matters. I just for me, it's a weird place because I feel like I need the last 3 to be good.
I feel like it's the same place with every single franchise right now. Every single franchise is just hanging in the balance right now of like, it's on that tipping scale, whether it's Marvel, DC, Star Wars, whatever.
But I'm also the type that's not afraid to skip an episode. Like, if you're not getting me excited to watch the next episode, I'll skip it or I'll just watch it later on. You know what I mean? So that's how it is. So I'm excited to see this next episode. As long as they keep doing that, giving me that feeling, then they're doing fine to me.
All right. Well, that was a side thing. That wasn't even a topic today. I don't know. Maybe you guys can jump down in the chat and let us know how are you feeling about The Mandalorian this season. All right. With that down, guys, let's get into the real stuff here because we do have a lot we need to cover. And the first thing is this. Well, after watching Puss in Boots, there is a little bit, we're going to spoil kind of a post-credit thing here in Puss in Boots. If you haven't seen Puss in Boots by now, that means probably you're not very interested in it. But, at the end, we see Puss in Boots sailing off towards... what's it called? What's the name of the land?
Far away.
Far, far away. He's sailing off towards far, far away. They're just in a boat. And he said, where are we going? He goes, we're going to see some old friends. And then the camera pans back and they're sailing towards far, far away. And everybody got excited in theaters, right? And we thought, oh, okay, well, they're probably going to do Shrek 5. Well, now it's official. The story came out. Yep, it's official. Shrek 5. Shrek 5 apparently is coming. As kind of suggested by the Illumination, I almost said the Illuminati. The Illumination
them too.
had Chris, I'm going to mispronounce his nice last name, Meledandri? Meledandri. You said that way better than I
Chris
did.
M.
Yeah, Chris M. CMs, C-Cakes, is saying that they're going to do it. And what is probably going to be most important to people who are fans of the Shrek franchise, he is saying it's all going to have the original cast coming back as well. And he says, look, it says this in Variety. They talk about the Super Mario Bros. Also serves creative partner dreamers, blah, blah, blah. In that capacity, he's pursuing to bring back the film's original voice cast, which includes Mike Myers, Cameron Diaz, Eddie Murphy for Shrek 5. It also goes on to talk in here about the fact that they're going to look at doing a donkey spinoff. Which, wasn't it recently that Eddie Murphy was kind of trash talking the Puss in Boots spinoff a bit, saying Donkey should have a spinoff? So that makes me wonder if he already knew they were
projecting.
Yeah, and that was just a work, if you will. So that kind of because I remember when Eddie Murphy was saying that, I thought, well, that's not very classy of Eddie Murphy to kind of be disparaging one thing to talk up his own thing. But now we know it was probably already in the works, and that was all just a thing. Anyway, there's not going to be anybody in this room who's more excited about this than Taylor. So Taylor, first of all, tell us about your shirt.
Oh my God, you guys, I am wearing, I don't know if you can really see it, but I am wearing a shirt that has the entire script of the first Shrek film.
Send that shirt to Rob.
Yeah,
In one shirt.
One shirt. I have 2 of them just in case this one gets moist or something. You never know. But I woke up this morning, checked Twitter. There's Chris, my boyfriend David, and I at DreamWorks. I do not fit in Ray's frame. But that was us at DreamWorks, home of Shrek, his homeland. This morning I woke up. I had a lot of notifications, and I was like, great, I'm being canceled. There's Shrek again. And I was so excited. I started yelling, and I was like, David, wake up. And he thought we were under attack. He was like, there I am praying to Shrek for the announcement of this. And I woke him up and I was like, David, they announced Shrek 5 and a donkey spinoff. And he said, I'm happy for you. You did it. And then rolled back over and went back to bed.
Yes,
so now I'm here to
Taylor,
celebrate.
you did it.
I did it.
I think we can say that Taylor single-handedly has moved the needle to make sure we get a Shrek 5. Chris, you're hearing about this.
Oh,
what do you think?
I'm so excited for us to be in Shrek 5. Last time when Taylor and I got to go to DreamWorks campus together, the whole time we were just walking around being like, oh my gosh, we're going to be here so soon to be in the cast. So we're going to put that out into the universe, you guys. If we are not some weird little fairy tale creatures, I'm going to be very disappointed. I'm so excited about this movie. I love these.
I'll tell you what. My only question about this is what took so long? I mean, this is a franchise that is beloved. People adore it. Now, it fell off a little bit. I mean, I think it peaked in Shrek 2, but I still think 3 and 4 were really enjoyable.
Did Puss in Boots make a lot of money? Maybe that's what pushed it over.
Here's the thing. Let's take a look at this. if we're going to go over and look at the Shrek franchise,
Please do.
first things first.
Dominance.
The first Shrek made $484 million. All right. Now you got to remember, this was how long ago did the first Shrek come out?
Oh, you would think I would know this off the top of my head, but it's numbers.
But it's been a while. All right. It's been a while. The next one, Shrek 2, nearly joined the $1 billion club. I mean, that's just how successful the first one was. And by the way, I still think the second one is the best one of the bunch. Made nearly $1 billion at $928 million. And you think maybe there was a fall off with the third? Not really. The third one still made $813 million. We're talking comic book movie franchise numbers here.
And more than Black Adam.
And way more than
much more
Black
than Black
Adam.
Adam.
And then the final one, Shrek 4, made $752 million. Now that's a little bit of a decline that we see from going from 2 to 4, but it's a marginal decline. I mean, you bottomed out at $752 million. And what was the final box office take of Puss in Boots? Because I don't think many people thought Puss in Boots could clear $200 million. But that came out, ended up getting nominated for a Best Animated Oscar, which, I mean, whatever. I don't think there should be a Best Animated Oscar category. Damn it, that's just the Academy's excuse for not including animated films in the actual Best Picture race. Anyway, did we got a number on Puss in Boots?
Puss in Boots' Last Wish made $478 million worldwide.
Yeah. I mean, are you kidding me? A lot of people did not think that thing would clear 200 million. I thought it would clear under 200 million, but I didn't think it would clear 200 million by much. Certainly not double that.
So what was it, 478 you said? So that's, okay, so it's just below Shrek, but
The
barely.
original Shrek, but I mean...
Well, and they also put it on streaming really quickly after it was in theaters, too, and it was still #1 at the box office for ages.
It's still in the box office.
Yeah.
It's still making money in theaters
Because that's
today.
the way to see Puss in Boots, on a giant screen. Go
Oh,
do it.
It's so much fun.
so good.
Listen, I think this is a fantastic idea. The world wants Mike Myers and Eddie Murphy back doing this stuff. Cameron Diaz says she's retiring again, but it doesn't count if it's voice work. Go on in there, Cameron. I'm very, very excited about this.
Are you sure? The
What's that?
world or just this world right here?
I think this is a great idea. Guys, all right, question is for you. What do you think about this? That it looks like Shrek 5 is indeed on its way and coming. I think it's a great idea. I think clearly there's a hunger for this world to go back to it. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. All right. With that down, guys, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, you're going to talk about some of the biggest movie stars in the world. You're obviously going to talk about Margot Robbie, Ryan Gosling, as going to be a name coming out. Simu Liu, good Canadian kid, by the way, is not one of the biggest stars in the world right now, but he's hot right now with the successor Shang-Chi. Excellent, excellent stuff. Well, they're all making a movie together. The movie that we have been needing for generations, a Barbie movie. Now, they've been trying to get a Barbie movie going for a while. I mean, it first started with, who's the train wreck girl again?
Amy
Schumer. So it started with Amy Schumer was going to do one, which I actually loved the idea that she had for a Barbie movie. I can't remember all the details right now, but the basic
Concept.
basic idea for her Barbie movie I thought was really interesting. And so, but then that didn't go anywhere. And then Anne Hathaway, I think, was attached to do a Barbie movie. And then that didn't go anywhere and didn't happen. Then we heard Margot Robbie was going to do a Barbie movie. And that was years ago. And then we heard Greta Gerwig was going to come on. Of course, an Academy nominated director, all that kind of stuff, filmmaker was coming on. And then they gave us our first little teaser for it a few weeks back, which I thought was cute. Well, today they have put out what they are officially calling their second teaser, even though it is kind of like a short trailer. It's like, I think like a minute 40 long or something like that. And listen, there are a lot of people very excited about this movie. And I'll tell you what, after watching this trailer, I am not one of them. I thought the idea for this was really cool. I love, obviously, two good Canadian kids as the two Kens in Ryan Gosling and Simu Liu. So you think I love Margot Robbie. I thought this trailer was terrible.
Wow.
I thought it was terrible. And even like the whole beach off lines, that was badly, like here's the thing. If if Seth Rogen and Will Ferrell were doing the beach off lines, they would have delivered them very differently. And I think that scene would have killed. I think I would have been laughing my guts out. And Will Ferrell is in the movie, by the way. Will Ferrell is in the film. I mean, the one joke in it that I thought was clever was when Ken is asking Barbie if he can stay over for the night. And she's like, to do what? Awkward pause. I'm not really sure. Okay, that I admit, I giggled at. I did giggle at that. Artistically, I think the design of the world is really interesting. I mean, it is a Barbie. I mean, Ryan looks like Ken there. I mean, come on, that's kind of perfect. But I thought the design, the set design, all that kind of stuff, the artistic look of it, I thought was all good. The trailer just didn't click with me. You know, I often talk about you need a trailer that's going to tell you kind of a little bit what it's about. I guess maybe they did a little bit because they said the road sign there that says to the real world. So I assume that's going to be part of the plot here, but I'm going to admit, I've been kind of interested in this movie, kind of excited, good Canadian connections. Trailer just did not do it for me. Chris, you watched the trailer this morning. What did you think about it?
I didn't dislike it as much as you did, but I also wasn't as impressed as I hoped to be. I think this looks really, really great. It's so pretty and pastel, and it's just all candy coated, and it delivers on the aesthetic that I really, really want from this. And I do think this is going to be a really fun time. I'm hoping that we're just saving the best jokes and bits for the actual movie.
Boy, because it can't be worse.
Yeah.
Now,
Ray loved it.
I was going to say, so like the last
No, I
person
didn't.
in the office to watch it this morning was Ray.
I changed my mind.
We were kind of wondering, I wonder what Ray's going to be thinking about it. And Ray's sitting there watching the trailer and just laughing through it. So Ray, what did you think about the trailer?
Marijuana.
You got to talk to your mic, man.
Oh, marijuana makes everything better, baby. Just kidding. No, I actually liked it. It's corny. I mean,
It is corny,
It's
yeah.
kind of my thing. I mean, I like corny movies. We'll wait to see what the story is, because that's going to be the most important part of a Barbie movie. The story, Oscar-worthy Barbie movie. Yeah, so let's figure it out. Let's figure it out. That was a teaser, you said, right?
They called it the second teaser.
Yeah.
I do like the part where she got out of the heels and she was still in that arc position.
Okay,
was a
all
funny
right.
bit.
That she gets out of the heels
That's
and her
like-
feet are still arched. Okay, because that's the way the doll's feet are.
And plus, the lady who's directing it, right?
Greta
She was
Gerwig.
nominated for
Mary
something.
Oh
You
yeah,
are
yeah.
seeing.
She's. I think several of her projects have been
So
nominated.
she,
had nominations.
I'm a hold off, but I did find this trailer entertaining. Nothing really bothered me about it. That's the way I think the Barbie world would be if they were alive. So I don't know.
We'll see, guys. The question is for you. What did you think of the Barbie trailer? I'm not gonna lie. I didn't think it was very good. I've actually lost a little bit of interest in this movie. Maybe the next trailer
Yeah,
can
they
totally
did his
turn it. Maybe the next trailer can totally turn it around. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.
Just
All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? John Wick entered the theater the other day. John Wick Chapter 4 set a franchise record last week for its opening weekend with $70+ million. The first one of the franchise to do that. And the film is spectacular. It's so much fun. It is such an enjoyable, adrenaline-inducing ride that I thought I would have got tired of, with the 3-hour runtime, but I never did. I never once felt the length of it. They just found a way to keep the various action sequences flowing and moving, and I just absolutely loved it. Now, with the world of John Wick, though, we've been talking for some time now about the fact that there are a couple of spin-offs coming. We've got a Continental project coming, and of course, one we've been talking about with Ana de Armas as the Ballerina. And so we've been waiting for more news on the Ballerina and all that kind of stuff. And we know that, Keanu Reeves is going to make an appearance in the film and all that kind of stuff, setting up questions about the timeline, where in the timeline does Ballerina take place, and all that kind of stuff. But at least now we know when it's coming out. They have today announced a release, at least not, I don't know if they've got a specific release date, but they've got a release window. And that release window now is for the summer of 2024. So it's a little over a year away that we're going to have a chance to see this movie. The Deadline describes a project like this. Ana de Armas stars as an assassin trained in the tradition of Ruska Roma, which all of us, of course, were, with franchise persona Keanu Reeves, Ian McShane, and Lance Reddick being back in addition to Angelica Houston, Gabriel Byrne, Catalina Sendino Moreno, and Norman Reedus. I totally forgot Norman Reedus was popping up in this thing. Are going to be back there as well. So this thing's coming out next year. I got to tell you, anything to do with the John Wick world, you have me completely fascinated. Because honestly, I think the thing that stops the John Wick franchise from just being kind of a mindless action series, because I've always said action without narrative purpose is just visual noise. But John Wick always gave a narrative framework to the action that's going on. And a big part of that narrative framework is the mythology of this world. What I call it the world of the Continental, is what I refer to it as. It's that structure and that world and that mythology. And at the end of the day, this one simple driving purpose through the entire franchise. John Wick is about a man trying to find peace. I mean, that in a nutshell, that's the description. And within that description, within that narrative framework, and within that world of the Continental, the action paints in the colors of the narrative and the story, and it makes it work beautifully. Now, you go back to the most recent James Bond film, and Ana de Armas, she wasn't in a lot of the movie, but my God, the part of that movie she was in, she stole it. She completely stole it as this high intensity, ass kicking agent. She was fantastic in it. I loved her in it. And then on top of all that, she just happened to just recently get an Academy Award nomination. So right now I will watch anything she's in. The fact that she's entering this John Wick universe, I think is fantastic. So next summer for me cannot get here soon enough. Anyway, Chris, it's a little bit more tangible now. There's an actual release date for it. What are you thinking about Ballerina? Where's your anticipation level like right now? And what do you think about getting it a prime summer release date?
Oh, I think it's going to be so good. I'm so excited about it. This franchise does world building so well. I mean, just rewatching the first one this past week and looking at that coin system and seeing how the kind of underworld economy is built throughout it and everything. They do such great detail work in the John Wick series. So I love this other branching off to have these other kind of syndicates and these other kind of assassins. I think making it a summer blockbuster is the way to go. That's the kind of movie you want to see. You want to go see a whole big fight action sequence, guns blazing kind of thing. And I think with somebody like Ana de Armas, who you totally buy in these roles as well, she really delivers on action sequences. It's going to be a really, really great fit. And as long as we get Keanu popping in there too, I'm going to be very happy.
By the way, of course, the name Lance Reddick pops up.
Yeah.
So obviously, his scenes were already shot. Obviously, it still sucks that he's gone. Anyway, guys, the question is for you. It looks like not only is Ballerina tangibly got a release date, they're giving it a prime summertime release date in 2024. Are you looking forward to this? Maybe you're not all that interested in a John Wick movie without John Wick. I don't know. Whatever you guys feel about it, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this, shall we? We already talked about the Barbie trailer, where another trailer has come out today. This one I am significantly more excited about. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is one of my single most pleasant surprise movies I think I've ever seen. And I say surprise in the context of the fact that I thought this movie was going to be shite. I thought Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was going to be crap. I did not like the animation style from the trailers that I saw. I did not think the trailers were particularly good. I started to warm up a little bit in the latter trailers, but when the first couple of trailers, I did not warm up of it. I was not down. I didn't think, look, everybody loves the Peter Parker Spider-Man. Let's just do Peter Parker Spider-Man. Blah, blah. I didn't know people wanted to see him as somebody else in the spider suit, all that kind of stuff. And then I walked in. And this is why I always tell people, when you go into the movie theater, before you go through that threshold of the door, take your preconceived expectations and leave them at the door. And then just go in and watch it. Because I was so negative on this franchise. My God, I walked out just in love with it. It's one of my favorite comic book movies of all time. I love that movie. And of course, now with the sequel on its way, last year at CinemaCon, they showed us like 15 minutes of it. And even though a lot of the animation wasn't done, some of it was straight up pencil sketch. It was still unbelievable. It was still thrilling and still had this beautiful style to it that I have come to appreciate. And all this kind of stuff is just amazing. Well, they dropped the new trailer for it today. And wow. Again, it's just, I didn't realize how much I have missed Miles and Gwen until we see him looking at her and she goes, "You want to get out of here?" I mean, which we've seen in something else before in another piece of promo, but just seeing it in that context. And then when Peter walks in and
with Mayday.
It was so cute. And then of course you got the Spider-Man 29.9, which they of course foreshadowed back in the first film and all that kind of stuff. And you know what's funny though? I was doing open mic yesterday and somebody asked me, they said, "What do you think it is Miles does that gets all the Spider-Men mad at him in the Spider-Verse?" And I said on the show yesterday, he said, "I don't know, but you know what I think it's probably going to be? It's going to be one of those things where it's like, oh, you got to make a choice to either save one random, one person, but if you save one person, you're putting everything at risk." I said, it's probably going to be something like that because that's what they did in Spider-Man No Way Home. And the trailer came out this morning. You can either save one person or save the multiverse. I can do both. Anyway, I love this trailer. It's hard for me to put into words just how excited I am for this movie. And when does it come out? I'm not even keeping track of the release date, but it's got to be coming out this summer, I believe. I'm not completely sure. What do we got?
I'm trying to see because I remember the old date. I think it's June now, June 2nd, I think.
June 2nd. All right. I'm just beside myself here. So I absolutely love this trailer. Anyway, Chris, you had a chance to see the trailer for Across the Spider-Verse. What did you think about it?
I'm so excited about it. Oh, when Mayday Parker shows up, little toddler Mayday, I lost my mind. I was so excited. I love Peter B. Parker. I think he's just wonderful. This looks fantastic. The stuff we got to see at CinemaCon was so beautiful, even though it wasn't complete. And so to see so much of it come to fruition was great. That little snippet where we got to see Bombastic Bagman in there, hell yes. I'm so excited for all these different Spider-Mens. I think it's going to be a really, really fun ride. And Lord and Miller really just deliver. They do such exquisite work no matter what medium they're working in. And they've always championed animation in such a beautiful, beautiful way of how this is cinema and this is really, really wonderful work. And you can see it. Every single panel of this is pure art. It's beautiful. I can't wait for this.
Now, it should be pointed out, though, just to be clear, that Lord and Miller are not directing this film.
They're still associated with it.
They're still producing it. Yeah, they're still the producers on it. It's being directed by Joaquin Dos Santos, Kemp Powers, and Justice K. Thompson. So 3 directors in there. Mm-hmm. But Phil Lord and Christopher Miller did write the script, and they are producing. And it was funny because last year at CinemaCon, they actually came out on stage to talk about a little bit, but they said this movie is like packed with surprises. Is one of the things they told us last year. I'm still, there's no indication this is happening. I'm still kind of holding out hope they're going to show us the movie at CinemaCon. Now, again, there's been no indication that they are, but with the huge presentation they did last year, I wonder if they might have a little surprise screening up their sleeve. I doubt it. I mean, it's probably not, but I'm going to hold out hope. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What did you think about the Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse trailer? I absolutely loved it. I cannot wait to see this one. Maybe you're not even a fan of the franchise. Maybe you didn't like the first one. Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move into this, shall we? James Gunn. Oh, he comes up in the news a whole bunch here. What is this? Oh my God.
He said he wanted to go younger on Superman Legacy. He just cast. That's the official photo from the movie. Come on.
For those of you who don't know, Ray is responsible for putting together the graphics. The Papa, he said he wanted to go younger.
Oh my God.
Try doing this whole segment. That baby behind you.
I think it just winked.
That baby's so intense.
Oh my God. That is
he
an
fighting
angry
crime
looking
or he's
baby.
got a dookie. What's happening?
That is a
He's-
dead,
he's-
serious
I ain't gonna
baby.
lie, I would watch it. Come on.
All right. Trying to regather my thoughts here. So, James Gunn he's of course now the head of DC Studios along with Peter Safran. And we know they got a Superman movie, and he's very, very active on social media and all that kind of stuff. Well, he recently did an interview where he actually dropped and started talking about like 3 very significant things all in one kind of interview, where he basically was talking about Superman's tone compared to Guardians of the Galaxy's tone, talk about the challenges of making a good MCU movie after the blip and stuff like that. He actually went through several really interesting things. Now, one of the things that a lot of people are kind of concerned about when it comes to his upcoming Superman movie, of course, James Gunn is not only the head of the studio, he's written and will be directing Superman Legacy, the first movie of the new DC that's coming out in 2025. And so one of the things that a lot of people, or some people, have had some concerns about is, hey, James Gunn's great, but I don't really know that I want a Guardians of the Galaxy feel to a Superman movie. Guardians of the Galaxy feel works great for Guardians of the Galaxy. But will it work for Superman? Not so sure. Well, that's the first thing he addressed in this. So take a look at this. He goes, the first thing he kind of covered was Superman on the Guardians of the Galaxy. And he said this: the director recently told Rolling Stone that his Superman movie is not going to feel like a Guardians movie. I learned so much, he said, from making these movies, Gunn said about his Marvel franchise, but it's not like Superman is going to have exactly the same vibe as a Guardians movie. It's actually quite different. It's actually quite different. Now, I think it's kind of important that he come out and say that like right off the bat, like years before this movie comes out, and just put it out on the table. This is not going to be Guardians of the Galaxy with Superman. Superman is not going to have the sense of humor, personality, all that kind of stuff of Peter. He's not going to be Star-Lord. He's not going to be Drax. It's going to be different. And I think it was important for him to lay that out because as a massive James Gunn fan, as a massive fan of Guardians of the Galaxy, I don't want Superman to feel like Guardians of the Galaxy. I want it to have some lighthearted humor like the classic Superman movies did. I absolutely want that. But I just want to make sure it doesn't just feel like Guardians of the Galaxy with a Superman wrapper on it. You know what I mean? So I think it's key that he addressed that. The next thing he kind of talked about was talking about the challenges of making MCU movies after the blip. And I'm glad he brought this up because it's something I think that has kind of hovered over everything since Phase 4. But anyway, he said this. He said, I really want Marvel to keep making good movies, Gunn said about his exit. I think it's really hard in the wake of the blip. There's this worldwide, universe-wide event that happened. And in truth, everybody would be stark raving mad at this point. So it's hard to write stories in the wake of that, which is why the Guardians movies have been easier because they're set outside of that a little bit. And I am so glad he addressed this because I think it was Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They kind of touched on it a bit. That, listen, the world where half humanity suddenly disappears. The Avengers Endgame at the beginning did a pretty good job of kind of painting what the world has been like. And it's been hard. And it's been like everybody lost loved ones. And the world was dark now and gray and all that kind of stuff. What Falcon the Winter Soldier touched on a little bit is what kind of chaos would be, come to life if after several years of half the population being gone, if all of a sudden 3.5 billion people suddenly reappeared in the world. And while it touched on it a little bit, I think really the MCU has kind of glossed over that thing. I mean, the entire world would be in chaos for years, for absolute years. And I'm really glad James Gunn was pointing out, it's like, listen, it's hard. And I think that's probably why Marvel has kind of skipped addressing it much, because you can't start to address it without it kind of becoming the dominant theme of any story you're trying to tell. That it would take an awful long time for them to get over this. And I also like the fact that he says, I got lucky, Mike. The Guardians of the Galaxy kind of lives away from that. They don't have to be on Earth and dealing with that kind of stuff. So that was pretty good to hear from him on that too. The third thing that Gunn discussed, which I think is very, very relevant to today because it kind of came up a little bit on Open Mic yesterday. James Gunn decided to directly address the topic of superhero or comic book movie fatigue when he talked about this. He said, I think there is such a thing as superhero fatigue, Gunn told Rolling Stone. I think it doesn't have anything to do with superheroes, though. It has to do with the kind of stories that get to be told. And if you lose your eye on the ball, which is character, we love Superman, we love Batman, we love Iron Man, because they're these incredible characters that we have in our hearts. And if it becomes just a bunch of nonsense on screen, it gets really boring. I love that he addressed this, because I didn't read this until after we did the show, the open mic show yesterday, and somebody brought up the question of superhero fatigue. And one of the things that I had said on the show was, listen, ever since I started doing this almost 20 years ago, in June or July is going to be 20 years since I started my first blog called The Movie Blog. And ever since I started the movie blog back in 2003, every year, the question is comic book movie fatigue, superhero movie fatigue, comic book movie fatigue, every single year, and every single year proves that there's not. And that I believe it is not a coincidence that the only reason that the fact that more people are starting to bring up the concept of superhero fatigue, it's not a coincidence that that's happening as superhero movies have kind of lost a bit of their quality. And what I said on the show yesterday, and I think this is what James Gunn is saying as well, is that this has nothing to do with the genre. It has to do with mediocrity. People are not getting tired of the genre. People are getting tired of mediocrity. Because in ages past, just a couple of years ago, as 7 out of every 10 comic book projects that would come out were awesome, nobody talked about, not seriously anyway, fatigue. Everybody predicted fatigue was coming, but nobody talked about fatigue. Now, where it's kind of a contest, maybe 5 out of 10 are good, maybe 4 out of 10 are good, or whatever. Now we hear people talking because it's not about the genre, it's about mediocrity. And I think that's why I said, I think Guardians 3 comes out and kills it. And then and if Flash comes out and is great, I don't think you're going to hear a lot of talk of comic book movie fatigue again. I am completely with James on this one, talking about how it's when you make a comic book movie that's not great, that doesn't have good story, that doesn't have interesting characters, when you miss the part of making the movie part of comic book movie and you just focus on comic book, then you get into the weeds a bit. So yeah, I thought some really interesting things here from Gunn, talking about superhero fatigue, talking about the challenges of Marvel after the blip and all that kind of stuff, talking about the comparisons and how Superman and Guardians are going to be different. Anyway, Chris, you read through what James Gunn was talking about. What of these things are standing out to you the most or makes the biggest impression on you?
Ooh, his end quote. He writes or says, I get fatigued by most spectacle films by the grind of not having an emotionally grounded story. It doesn't have anything to do with whether they're superhero movies or not. It's the story at the base of it, just watching things bash each other, no matter how clever those bashing moments are, no matter how clever the designs and VFX are, it gets fatiguing. And I think that's very, very real. And I think that's something that I really want to hit on that he touches on here is, yeah, a lot of these movies are technically executed well, but they're so similar and they're all safe to an extent now too, in a post-blip world of delivering a superhero movie in a very specific kind of way. Guardians was a risk. Taking Guardians, one, because it's more of a B-side kind of comic book story and a set of heroes that most people didn't know about, but also just the way it was done was very different from anything we'd seen from Marvel at this point. We've seen them try to do this with things like Peacemaker being a very different kind of show. James Gunn is somebody who takes risks, and I think that's something we've kind of missed in the superhero field right now when it comes to filmmaking, is really, really exploring character and doing something more interesting with it when having these grounded characters who can do supernatural, larger than life kind of things. And I think right now these studios have been playing it really, really safe and sanitized. And I'm hoping we kind of get away from some of that and go back more into these more interesting character stories and find something to really dive into there. And I'm so glad he brings up that Superman is not going to be like Guardians of the Galaxy. Because one, why would it be? Why would it? If that is what you're expecting, you need to go back and read some comics and figure
Superman
out
has
things.
a playlist.
Oh my gosh, he's got a Zune too. Wow, he loves it. They're very, very different, and I think that's another thing we need to understand as well is we can't expect James Gunn to create the same kind of movie over and over again too. I mean, just go look at his oeuvre. If you look at Slither, if you look at other movies, they are so wildly different. If you go back to his Trauma days, there's such a wide catalog of what he does, and so I think to place him in a kind of cookie carton or superhero movies as a whole in that kind of carton is a disservice to them. So hopefully we all can broaden our expectations and have some really cool movies made.
I'm going to just point about character and story. Even go back to his most recent, Suicide Squad movie, right? We're talking about creating character, moments, and story. There are like two moments that really stand out to me amidst all the bonkersness, like when, Peacemaker and Idris Elba are walking through having a kill off. Who can kill as many people in the most creative ways possible, right? In the midst of all that bonkersness, though, two moments really stand out to me. There's this moment where they're driving through town and King Shark is in the van, and King Shark is just looking out the window, a character who does not or barely speaks. And yet they do this quick moment where he's looking out a window and he sees a couple holding hands and cuddling together, leaning against a building as they're driving by. And then the camera just goes back to King Shark's face. And I remember I got choked up. There's no dialogue, no lines, nothing. And I felt like they just did what a lesser filmmaker would have taken a 10-minute sequence to do, to explain and convey. And I felt like we were understanding King Shark as a character and his heart and his emotions and his feeling and what he's longing for, and all in a moment. Another thing in that movie is how beautiful was the story of Ratcatcher 2 with her dad.
So good.
Right? Her drug addicted dad who loved her anyway. And that, like, who didn't get choked up on that? This is the strength of James Gunn. To be able to do this ridiculous bonkersness, and within that bonkersness, have these beautiful, character-centric, story-driven things that really become the engine of the stories he's trying to tell. And if he can bring that aspect to Superman, I think we're in for something really cool. Anyway, guys, the question is for you. What did you think about this interview with James Gunn, talking about the challenges with Marvel, talking about the difference between Superman, talking about comic book fatigue? What stood out to you? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? If you hadn't heard, the sheriff is back in town. Big Papa Iger is back and in control over at Disney. And with it, maybe bringing some changes along with things. Here's what I mean. You guys know that one of the biggest struggles for Marvel over the past couple of decades has been the fight for them to get back the rights to their properties. Because during a very dark time in Marvel's past, they had financial struggles, they were on the brink of bankruptcy several times, and they were selling off character rights left, right, and center. And then the last number of years has been a long process of trying to somehow claw and get those character rights back. They still haven't been able to do it with Spider-Man, although they got an interesting deal with Sony. They still haven't been able to do it in its totality with Hulk or Namor, but that's been a priority to them. And when they were launching Disney Plus, we all said, including me, well, they will never license out their content again, because now they got Disney Plus. This is going to be the home for where they do things. Well, maybe not. Bob Iger causing some surprises and just making some heads turn, because he was talking about now in a recent investors call that they are indeed going to be opening to licensing out their content to other streamers and other broadcasters. This is specifically what he said. Iger noted that having exclusivity to many tentpoles drove early demand for Disney Plus, which reached 100 million subscribers just 16 months after its November 2019 relaunch. We're proud of our track record, though we recognize we have challenges ahead of us, namely to get to profitability. Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big goal right there.
Do companies
Iger
like
said,
to make money?
Really?
Huh.
We're not looking to license our core Marvel, Disney, Pixar, or Star Wars product to third parties. We will consider, on occasion, licensing other product to third parties. Let me read that last part again. We're not going to license out Marvel because we just spent decades trying to get everything back. We're not going to license out our Disney characters. We're not going to license out Pixar. So don't expect to see, Toy Story 5, The Dark Days on HBO Max. And we're not going to license out Star Wars. So you're not going to see the Adventures of Babu Freak on Peacock.
Damn it.
So that ain't coming. So those things safe,
Peak.
but in a
Another ring to
real change of messaging over the last couple of years, he's now saying we're opening to putting out some of our stuff that doesn't fall under those categories onto third parties. Okay, what could that stuff be? The biggest thing that jumps to my mind that did not fall under any of those categories is Indiana Jones. Could it be possible that once Indy 5 is done and Harrison Ford has been very clear he's done after Indy 5. That's it. What do you say?
he's
You can't
literally
beat me
done.
up anymore or something like that. He was very, very clear. He's done. I wonder if like after Indy 5 is done and some network, let's say Paramount Plus, formerly the home of Indiana Jones, not Paramount Plus, but Paramount.
Yeah.
What if a Paramount Plus said, hey, listen, if you guys make an Indiana Jones TV series with a new, younger Indiana Jones, hey, listen, we will pay you top dollar for Paramount Plus to be the streaming home of that Indiana Jones series. So either Disney can still produce the content and then license it out, or they can just license out the rights and Paramount can make it themselves. I don't know. But then there's a lot of other properties and product. Maybe, they've just got so many creative ideas and they don't really think it fits into some place on their current strategy. Maybe they've got show ideas or movie ideas that they think, you know what? These are really great, but I don't think they fit on Disney Plus or whatever. You can still make money and license them out. I don't know exactly what is left after you take out Disney characters, Marvel, Pixar, and Star Wars. Maybe Nat Geo content. I don't know. But anyway, Chris, you hear about this. What do you think about Iger kind of signaling a little bit of a change of philosophy for them, saying we're open to some of our IP being licensed out elsewhere? And what IP do you think that could be? What do you make of this?
Well, first of all, this was a big kick in the door, daddy's home kind of thing, because this is his first shareholder meeting since coming back.
Right.
So he's talking about licensing out IP. He clapped back at DeSantis. He made a lot of announcements for the live action stuff. So this was a big, bold kind of shareholder meeting. We are forgetting about one of the most important Disney princesses, nay, queens, Alien.
Wow. I didn't even think about that.
Alien and Predator, they can do some weird stuff with that elsewhere, because that might not go into Bob Iger's family-friendly kind of idea of what Disney is, right?
Especially if they do end up selling Hulu. Because that's where
Prey
ended up on.
Yep.
If they do, there'll been a lot of whispers that he's looking to spin off Hulu and sell it off. And if it does, maybe that content needs a home.
Exactly. It's already kind of prepackaged in there. And I think that makes sense, both for the kind of content they want to be making and just because that IP is very, very valuable. People love those franchises. And Prey did so phenomenally well that I think that's one that you can sell off. Because otherwise, you are kind of looking at, those things, indie, Avatar, but James Cameron's really, really booked up. And I don't know if we're going to have any TV series or anything like that going to an HBO or something of that nature. Because most of the properties they talked about that are their bread and butter are those things listed, right? They're not going to be licensing out Mickey. We're not going to have Mickey and Minnie doing home renovations with Chip and Joanna Gaines.
I would watch that show.
I would watch the shit out
Don't
of it.
judge me.
Oh my gosh. Oh boy, shiplap. It'd be great. It'd be amazing. But I think those are we have to look at the more adult-ish kind of properties that they have right now. And I think that's what they're going to do a big push on, trying to pop out to other folks. Because an Alien series, that would be dope.
Well, aren't they working on something Alien series?
Yeah, they're working on. I forgot where it was going to go. Wasn't it going to go to Hulu? I could look it up really quick.
Probably going to Hulu. Yeah. But I mean, here's the
Switch that
interesting
up.
thing. This fits in with what Iger was talking about recently, because we were talking about this the other day, that Iger is mandating slowing the F down, right? This whole thing of 2021, 2022, where Marvel alone put out 17 projects. And Iger stepped in and said, we need to slow the F down. We need to slow this out, right? That might work into this where it's like, listen, all of our time, now that we're going to take our time and put more effort into our Marvel material, into our Pixar material, into our Star Wars material, maybe that takes properties that they have, like an Alien or a Predator or whatever, and other things like that, where they go, listen, we've got these incredibly valuable properties, but we don't have the bandwidth or the time to make these things. So instead of having them just sitting on a shelf, hey, Paramount or Peacock or HBO, if you want to pay us 150 million a year, whatever, to have the rights for 15 years to these things to make and market and produce these content, you go ahead. Because we're not going to do anything with it right now. We are busy on this. I guess that would make sense. That would fit in. Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Bob Iger is saying, okay, maybe not Marvel, maybe not Pixar, maybe not Star Wars, but we are opening to licensing out some of our stuff again. Do you think that's something that can work for them? What types of content and material do you think he could be talking about? Maybe an Indiana Jones, maybe Predator, Alien moving down the line, maybe original content that they've got that we've never even heard about. Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with that down, let's now move on to our Mint Mobile hotline question of the day. If you guys have a question for the show and you'd like to hear your voice on it, go ahead and call our hotline number anytime at 951-268-4259. Leave your message and you just might hear it on the show. And today, it's asking about, with Mario coming out, the possible future of video game movies.
Hey, John and company. I've been a fan since the Man of Steel review. My name's Steven. My question is, be a game that you'd like to see become a movie. You know, this is the week that Super Mario Bros. Comes out. I'm just questioning, like, what movie would you like to see?
All right. Thanks a lot for calling that in, man. And you know what's funny? Yeah, Mario Brothers is coming out tonight. The first reactions were great. Actually, today at noon, they are dropping the review embargo. Gets dropped. So a little bit later in the show, we'll run over and take a peek at what the actual review ratings are turning out. The opening reactions were all pretty damn great, but we'll see what happens once that review embargo drops, and we'll check in with that at 12 o'clock. But when you look at recent video game adaptation stuff, right? What has worked? Sonic worked. I thought Sonic worked really well. It sounds like the Mario Brothers movie has worked. Well, I'll find that out tonight at midnight for myself. Last of Us worked, but a lot of stuff has not. You know, Warcraft didn't work.
Uncharted.
I'm not going to I kind of liked it. Well, I mean, if you ask Ray, Uncharted was a masterpiece. So there are a lot of people out there that liked Uncharted. But yes, some
and
of
those
us,
people are wrong.
including me,
No,
did not like. I didn't particularly like. I didn't hate Uncharted, but I think there's potential there. I think there's potential. But you got things like Assassin's Creed didn't work. I mean, on and on. The list is long. It goes from me to you. Like, what's this? 15 feet, 20 feet. Mm-hmm. I mean, list long of all the video game projects and properties that did not work. But if you look at the ones recently that have, assuming that Mario Brothers is one of them from the reactions, Sonic the Hedgehog, I wonder if one of the keys to making some really good video game content right now in television or movie format might be to go to the more classic stuff that carries more of a nostalgia factor. Again, Mario Brothers, people are lining up to go see it. Sonic, you had something to build on there. Now, I know a lot of people will say, oh, they're modern ones. The ones that they're playing right now. But I don't know if that has the hook to it, that as much as games that have 1 to 2 to maybe even 3 decades of history behind it, that could make for a really nice starting fertile ground for a filmmaker to come in and say, we can make a really fun thing around this. So I've got a few suggestions here, and then I want to hear your guys' ones on this. Here's a couple of what I think are kind of more classic video games that I actually think would translate well into a great movie or series today. I'm going to start off with this one. Monkey Island.
Ooh.
I think Monkey Island would make a fabulous movie or even franchise of movies, right? You've got the whole pirate era thing. It's got a great sense of humor, the mystery part of it, all that kind of stuff. The Monkey Island games are incredibly entertaining. They're really immersive too. Like my wife Anne, the newest one came out. She beat it in a night or 2 nights. Like I think it was maybe 2 days. She just didn't stop playing until she just beat the whole damn thing and got through all of it. But I think Monkey Island is a serious contender for something that you can take that 2 generations of people have played and know and enjoy. And I just think the basic foundation of the game could lend itself with a good screenwriter to come in and write something really fun around it. So I think actually Monkey Island is one that would have a lot of potential for success. My second one that I'm going to mention here is one that I mention quite a bit. Not a lot of other people do, but I'm going to put it out there anyway. Day of the Tentacle. Day of the Tentacle by LucasArts is one of the most fun, funny, addictive games that you could possibly have. And this one goes back.
Yeah, this is a spinoff of Maniac Mansion.
Okay.
Yes.
I was
This one
scared
goes
to Google this one.
all the way back.
I love Maniac Mansion.
But basically, this evil tentacle drinks some swamp water and, well, he was nice, drinks some wastewater, becomes super evil genius, develops hands, and is in a time traveling adventure. And it's a puzzle solving game, but is trying to take over the world. And you've got to try to stop this evil purple tentacle from taking over the world. I love it. I think it would make a fabulous, fabulous movie. All right. This one, you're all going to kind of say, huh? When I put it on there, but think about it. Remember, I don't think the key to a great video game adaptation like Sonic and whatever, like you look at Sonic, that doesn't follow the game at all. It just takes the premise of the game and builds something great around it, right? I'm going to suggest this. Asteroids. I think you could make a really engaging, kind of delightful little Armageddon kind of movie with, instead of one giant asteroid coming to Earth, there's this huge asteroid field hurling towards Earth. And a lot of the asteroids are too big to burn up and it could be calamity for the Earth. And they have to put together this team, this hotshot team that has to fly out into space and train to take these asteroids out. I don't know. I just think as a starting reference point and using something that has very recognizable nostalgia attached with it, I think Asteroids could be one that could do pretty well. All right. Let's go on to another one. I almost didn't include this one because I thought, well, it's not old enough, but then I double checked how old it is. It's like, yeah, it is actually pretty old. I think this could make a fascinating game in the hands of the right writer. This could make a neat movie. Myst.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Myst.
That goes back. That's like the 90s.
It goes back. And I remember at the time, it was visually the most gorgeous game.
Frustrating as hell. But...
Very frustrating game, but the most gorgeous game at the time that like anybody had seen when it first came out. It is a puzzler. The game is a puzzler, basically. But you create a mystery kind of to be solved. You create a Inspector LeBlanc kind of movie set within this concept and idea of Myst. I think that could have a lot of upside and a lot of potential. All right. The last one I'm going to mention here is one that has been talked about a long time. There have been at least 3 different occasions when modest to serious talk about this happening has come up, even to the point, at one point, John Cena was attached to do it, but nothing has ever come to fruition. Duke Nukem.
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Duke Nukem is forget the game. Duke Nukem is a character that begs to be on screen. Absolutely begs to be on screen. So many movies and TV shows have actually referenced and dropped quotes from Duke Nukem, even though most people would never know it actually came from Duke Nukem. But it came from Duke Nukem. Now you may say this looks more like a bygone era, maybe an Arnold movie back in the early 90s could have done this, but I am telling you, I believe a James Gunn written Duke Nukem movie today, I think that would slay. I think it would absolutely slay. It's a little bit of a cross between like a 90s action adventure and say something like Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, like They Live and Big Trouble in Little China.
That's the perfect analogy. They Live and Big Trouble in Little China merging together, have a baby, and you got Duke Nukem. So I actually think these properties could stand a good chance of, in the hands of the right writers, doing something that could not only make good content, but would appeal to people to come out and see it, even those who are not gamers, because they'll all remember Duke Nukem. They'll all remember Asteroids. They'll all remember Monkey Island. And if they could capture that lightning in the bottle the way that, say, Sonic did and what hopefully Super Mario Brothers will, this is what I like. So, Chris, let me go over to you. That's my list what do you think of my list? And would you have any others that you'd want to add to
No,
that?
that's solid. I actually love Duke Nukem as one because I was going to suggest Broforce.
Oh
which
my God,
is-
remember that?
Oh, that game is so fun. I love that. And if it was just a very tongue-in-cheek, goofy version of the Expendables, basically, just really leaning into how ridiculous and overly macho and 90s it is, I think it'd be great. Zelda's the one that comes to mind the most, but it also, I think, is the one that has the most room to be very, very bad. Because the Zelda franchise is great and beautiful and stunning. And, you know, you also have a character who we've never really heard speak aside from some exertion noises. So that's a challenge to do. I would love Chrono Trigger. I think that could be an
Oh, that's a
amazing
good
one, right?
one. Yeah,
you've got
yeah, yeah.
parallel worlds, you've got dinosaurs, you've got sentient robots. It ticks all the Robert Meyer Burnett check boxes of like ninjas and dinosaurs. Yes. I think that'd be really, really fun. Star Fox. Star Fox is the one I want
Yeah,
most,
that'd
though.
be great.
I would love that.
That's got a great 3D animated kind of potential with that one.
And it could be killer.
I'm glad you brought up Link. That really should be the number one on the list. Now,
Like-
there was rumor we talked about. There were some whispers going
Yeah.
on that they are looking at doing that, especially with what's the new one called?
Oh, not
that-
Breath of the
Oh.
Wild, but the sequel
Was
to
it
it.
Breath of the Wild? But the sequel to Breath of the
Something,
Wild
yeah.
is coming out. I can't remember the name
let
of
me
it, but that's
double-check
coming
it.
out. Breath of the Wild kind of celebrated by some
Tears of
people.
the Kingdom.
There we go.
What is it called?
Tears of the Kingdom.
That's it, Tears of the Kingdom. Because Breath of the Wild is celebrated by a lot of people. Well, it's pretty much acknowledged as the de facto greatest Nintendo Switch game of all time. But a lot of people have it amongst their best video games in general of all time list. And so with the popularity, and it carries with all these as well. This is a multi-generational character with Link. And there's a lot of potential there. The question would be, well, how will the hardcore fans feel about Link actually speaking? It's just something they're going to have to get over. Because
Yeah.
I don't think you can make a movie without him speaking. But anyway, that should be. Ray, let me go over to you.
No, please.
You play more video games than me.
Yeah, but
Do you got any like game that you think has just been begging to be made? What's that one you really like with the young girls and it's kind of a
Yeah,
mystery?
keep talking. What is it?
Yeah, what is
The mystery one.
Life is Strange.
Life is Strange. That's you're always talking about that one.
But it could be just like any other drama, I guess. Like there's nothing that really want to see. Maybe Metroid. I don't know.
that's one that gets brought up a lot.
Because
actually, Metroid.
Halo is like in this.
They've already done
someone
Halo.
I know, but like it's like it reminds me of that. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm everything that I would have said has already been done. Gears of War is coming out.
Yeah.
I don't know. Taylor, do you have any?
I have a list, and so far you guys haven't mentioned any of them. Number one on my list, now that Gears of War is announced, is Animal Crossing.
Oh.
I
Oh,
would
Animal
love to
Crossing's
see
cute.
Animal Crossing.
Listen,
as a
I will tell you
movie.
right now. I guarantee you, they make an Animal Crossing movie. That movie makes $500 million. I'll just tell you right now. It may not be
yeah.
$1 billion. That movie, automatic. I'll tell you right now. That movie. When you look at how, because the new one came out right at the crest of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And my entire YouTube feed was constantly filled with people saying, "Look at my island." I mean, you're right. They do Animal Crossing.
If they can
that
make a
makes
story out of
500
it.
million
If you-
minimum.
If you timed it right, you could play with Elijah Wood because he was always on Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
So was Brie Larson. She was always playing. But also on my list, I have Plants vs. Zombies.
Yeah.
I love that game. And there's two different styles. There's the one where it's just plants and zombies, but there's also one that they made was like Call of Duty. And he would run around as a plant or a zombie and shoot people. I thought that was pretty fun. Left 4 Dead, which is one of my favorite zombie video games, along with Dead Island. I think those would be really good
I
adaptations.
love Dead Island, but there's so much zombie
I know.
content.
Yeah.
Like I just don't know that those ones would click.
It'd have to be so tongue in cheek, and then at that point, you've already got, gosh, what was that one? Zombieland and stuff like that. That already
Yeah.
kind of did that.
Yeah.
So
Anyway, guys, question is for you. Not just think about your favorite video game. What video game do you think a studio could actually look at and go, this would have wide appeal. We think people would be into this and people would come to it. What stands out to you? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, we still have to talk about a strike authorization vote coming from the WGA. Nobody wants to hear about this. Game of Thrones is talking about a new prequel series. And of course, Harry Potter looks like they're going to be rebooting it. What? We're going to talk about all that stuff once we come back after hearing from our sponsor of today's show, our friends over at HelloFresh. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip the trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. And that's why it's America's #1 meal kit. And there's no worries if you're not a pro in the kitchen. HelloFresh's foolproof recipes arrive pre-portioned and easy to prepare in just a few steps. You'll be feeling like Gordon frickin' Ramsay in no time. And guys, look, we're always looking for more ways to save money. HelloFresh is cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% cheaper than takeout. I've told you guys before, Ann and I love using HelloFresh. Not only is it really easy to put together fantastic looking and tasting meals, but it's also a lot of fun, and you get this really great sense of accomplishment when you're looking at this prepared dish that you've made with your own hands. So go to hellofresh.com/Campea50 and use the code Campea50 for 50% off, plus your first box ships free. That's hellofresh.com/Campea50 and using the promo code Campea50 for 50% off your first box ships free. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. And thank you to our friends at HelloFresh for sponsoring this episode of the John Campea Show. All right, guys. With that down, let's get into this. Guys, every 3 years we have to go through this dance where the major unions and guilds have to negotiate collective bargaining with the producers. And every time, everybody holds their breath. Now, the last time that the WGA, SAG, and the DGA, that's, of course, the Writers Guild of America, the Screen Actors Guild, and the Directors Guild of America. The last time they had to renegotiate their contracts was 3 years ago in the pandemic. And those negotiations went pretty quick because the only thing everybody was concerned about was keeping the lights on. And we all remember what happened. How many years ago was it now that the writer's strike happened? I can't remember how long ago that was. But when the writer's strike happened, it just crippled the industry. And it hurt everybody.
2007 to 2008.
2007, 2008. I mean, it was Armageddon. It was the apocalypse for Hollywood when that strike happened. And nobody wanted it. Nobody wants another one. Well, right now, the WGA, the Writers Guild of America, they are in the process of negotiating the new contract because the existing contract, I believe, comes due on May 1st.
Yep.
So what's happening now is that the WGA leadership is in negotiations with the producers. Kind of some of the highlights and the things you need to know and take away from about this story, about what's going on with the Writers Guild. So right now, the current Writers Guild of America deal, like we mentioned, ends on May 1st. So that's why they're working on it now. They're trying to get this thing done before that deadline comes. Now, the Writers Guild will hold their strike authorization vote on April 17th. That is not a vote to strike. What that vote is simply going to be is that the let's say all of us in this room were members of the WGA, and Rob was, like, say, the president of the WGA.
That's why we send him our scripts.
Have to, it would make sense. We have to vote to decide if we want to give Rob the authority on our behalf to call for a strike, right? We're not voting to strike. We're simply saying we are giving our leadership the authority to call a strike if and when the time comes and is needed. Because unless we, as the membership, authorize it, the leadership of the WGA can't call for a strike. So this is a necessary but significant step, this voter strike. This is the one time that the writers, the individual writers, have a chance to voice their concerns, maybe vote against any strike action. They won't. They will vote for the strike. And that just puts the authority in the leadership's hands that they get to play hardball, and they can call for a strike after the May 1st deal comes to an end. All right, so that's the other thing. The next thing that we need to take away from this is that the vote gives the leadership of the WG the authorization to call for a strike. Now, here are the two main concerns, according to the reports that I've been reading, of the WGA are, number one, money, obviously. Now, the WGA is not happy with, and I get it, that with the turn towards streaming, the fact of the matter is, I'm always complaining about this. We have gone from a world where shows, a season of TV meant 20 to 24 episodes of a show a year. Well, now in the world of streaming, we're talking about 8-episode seasons, 9-episode seasons, stuff like that. And the WGA is saying that the producers are using this as a pretext to cut how much that writers get paid. So they want that addressed and talking about. That shows have fewer episodes, thus studios are paying writers less. And also they have concerns about things like ChatGPT. The WGA has concerns that producers are just going to think they can bypass the writers altogether and just use AI, or use a hybrid, because AI is not there yet, but use a hybrid of AI with real writers doing the work. And then the producer saying, well, the AI did half the work, so we're only going to pay you half the money, that sort of thing. So they're worried about that, as well as a long laundry list of other concerns and things that they're trying to negotiate through. Now, one of the reasons this is so important is because the DGA, the Directors Guild of America, and SAG, the Screen Actors Guilds, their agreements are coming to expiration as well at the end of June. You see this in my last point here. The DGA, the directors, and SAG actors, their deals expire at the end of June. So as of right now, the Writers Guild expires at May 1st. The Directors Guild has set a start of negotiations with the producers for May 10th. So what the rest of the industry is waiting to see, the DGA and SAG are going to see what does the WGA get, and they're going to use that as a template and as a launching point for their negotiations as well. And here's the thing. That means that the WGA negotiations do not go well with the producers. There's going to be a domino effect. And these unions, generally speaking, stand in solidarity. If the writers don't do a deal, it's possible that the directors do, but it's unlikely. If the writers and directors don't do a deal, it is possible that SAG can still make a deal, but it's unlikely. And so it is not exaggeration to say the entire fucking industry is right now hanging on this. I know this story looks like a kind of a side story and everything, and I get that. It kind of looks like that on its surface. Oh, writers and producers are having negotiations. Guys, listen, don't underestimate this. This has the potential to be cataclysmic. I'm not saying that it will. I've not heard anybody from the producers or the Writers Guild saying, I don't think we're going to be able to get a deal done. I mean, they're not sounding kumbaya-ish either, but I'm not hearing anybody saying, I just don't think a deal can get done here. Everybody's doing a lot of saber rattling. Everybody thinks that their demands are reasonable, and that's going to happen right up until they sign a deal. But if they don't, the dominoes will start to fall. And for those of you who are old enough to remember what it was like in 2008 and 2009, when we were dealing with the results of the writer's strike and the type of crap that was happening at that time, we know we don't want this to happen again. Now, Chris, you are the one person in this room who is actively a member of one of these guilds. You are a SAG member, which makes me kind of believe that you guys are probably watching what's going on with the WGA negotiations with great interest. What's your take on this whole thing?
Well, first of all, as you could see from some of those images that Jonathan brought up too, SAG stands in solidarity with the Writers Guild. Their requests are fair and reasonable. And anytime you're negotiating, kids, make sure you use that phrase, fair and reasonable. I know you've heard this from me, John, because then it forces the other party to explain exactly why your demands are not fair or reasonable. And they have to use their own words to say it. And like you were pointing out here, it's things that are just about pay. And we've had different agreements with these different streaming services for ages. So Netflix has its own way of doing residuals and things like that. For those of you at home who aren't sure what we're talking about here, basically every time your episode airs, whether you're the actor, the writer, whoever, you do get a percentage of it playing again because it typically makes a profit, right? From commercials and things like that. Streaming's a little bit different, so we have a different system, and usually we don't get paid as much for those. However, streaming is obviously the way that most people watch things now. So these things do need to be adjusted to take that into consideration. If streaming is how people are showing shows and making money off of them, then we do need the kickback from that. From an actor's perspective, things are very, very slow right now. There are very few shows that are casting because we're all just kind of waiting in the wings to see how things shake out. Back in 2007, we had tons and tons of shows wrap early, cancel prematurely, that sort of thing. Pushing Daisies, Better Off Ted, things like that were big casualties at the time. And you saw this huge boom in reality television. So, get prepared for seasons like 7 through 12 of Love is Blind, because that's kind of what we're looking at here. Now, I do think that they should be able to reach an agreement. It is very fair and reasonable, honestly. It's just asking for fair wages. And I think that most of the producers want people to be working and be compensated fairly. I think everyone wants to work together in a very synergistic way. I know a couple people in the chat too have said things like, well, you should fire these writers anyway because they haven't been doing a good job. You guys, you are missing the point. It's not we're going to fire some writers of a show you dislike. Every single writer in the guild, unless they're willing to cross that picket line, is not going to be working. No one will be writing shows. All right? So that's what you have to think about. It's not, oh, good, we're not going to have more Boba Fett because I didn't like it. No writers.
No, all your favorite shows, those writers are included in those. Yeah.
It's not, we're not picking and choosing who's striking. It's everybody. Same with actors. It'll be everybody in the union. You will still see non-union productions happening. And a lot of things, commercials are a lot of times non-union. A lot of video games are non-union. Some animation, specifically anime dubs and things like that, they're non-union. But again, we've talked about those in the past too, of those folks not being compensated fairly and working for very, very low wage. I know if you hear something like $90 an hour sounds like a lot. Think about being an anime dubber who does that for 3 hours, but their movie makes millions like we've seen. So when we're talking about all of these strikes, we're talking about fair wages. And people who don't participate in these unions, ultimately it hurts them and the union members because we all want to be compensated well at the end of the day. So that's what we're talking about, not just specific writers who you maybe don't like.
All right, guys, this is a story that we and you, if you are a movie or a TV fan, I mean, it doesn't have the glitz and glitter of a new Avengers trailer, but I'm telling you, this is something we need to keep our eyes on if you're a fan of this stuff. Anyway, guys, as you look at the reports coming out and the stages that they're at, do you think the strike will happen? Do you think they're going to be able to find a way to avert it altogether? Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this here, shall we? Game of Thrones is, there's no disputing it. Game of Thrones is one of the most successful series of all time. I've never personally seen it. It wasn't my all-time favorite show or anything, but even I have to acknowledge, no show I think ever in history has had the pop cultural impact that Game of Thrones had. I mean, there have been better shows in my opinion, but it is a show that just completely enveloped all of the pop culture during the years that it was on the air. And some may argue, even in the years that followed. Now, of course, they came out with their first spinoff, a prequel called House of the Dragon, which understandably, some people didn't like the way that Game of Thrones ended. I did. I thought it was fantastic. But a bunch of people didn't, and that's fair. And so some people who didn't think that the Game of Thrones original series ended all that well had some apprehension. A little bit of skepticism even. That's natural going into House of the Dragon. Turns out those fears were completely unwarranted because House of the Dragon freaking ruled. That show is unbelievable and had great success. So clearly the people over at HBO are looking at wanting to play more in the world of Westeros. And now they're talking about a prequel series based on Aegon the First, who first came over from old Valyria and conquered 6 of the 7 kingdoms. And they're talking about going back and doing that story. And there's even whispers of them possibly doing it as first a movie and then like as a feature film, and then that movie would flow into the series itself. Now, this is the description that we get from over at Variety, who wrote the following. The show would tell the story of how Aegon and his sister wives, because he had 2 sisters and they were both his wives, because, that's how the Targaryens roll. Let's see if I can pronounce their names right. Visenya and Rhaenys used their army and their 3 dragons to conquer 6 of the 7 kingdoms on Westeros, with the exception of Dorne. In doing so, Aegon I became the first king of Westeros, the first to sit on the Iron Throne, and the founder of the Targaryen dynasty. Those events took place approximately 300 years prior to the events of Game of Thrones. Now, how far back did House of the Dragon go? Like 100 years? Or?
Yeah, so this is a couple hundred years before that.
So this would be a few more 100 years before that. Everybody's wondering where we're getting more brother and sister action on TV. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. Aegon is a-coming.
Ew, phrasing.
Oh, sorry.
Uh-oh.
No.
Out the window.
Didn't even mean that. Okay, phrasing, yes. Anyway, don't you worry. Good times are on their way.
There we go.
So, yeah. So, listen, I am all for this. The world of Westeros and the storytelling that they have been able to do in there with their mythology and all this kind of stuff has been fantastic. And I'll tell you what, going into House of the Dragon, some of my favorite stuff and scenes in House of the Dragon was when they were literally just telling tales of old Valyria and about the families and the bloodlines and the dragons and all that kind of stuff. And to actually go back to that and see that then manifested out, seeing actually Aegon the First and his sister wives, not afraid.
Dragon.
I mean, that's one of them.
That's, yeah.
And, if you woke up today wondering, will I hear the term sister wives? You got today's bingo card. Him and his sister wives come over to do that. I think it's a fabulous idea if they can continue on with the same quality that they did the original series with, that they did with House of the Dragon. They can carry that on. I think this is great. I'm most intrigued by this notion that they may do it as a feature film first, that then rolls into a series. I've not really seen that ever done. I think they were going to try to. What was the one with the Dark Tower, Idris Elba?
The Dark Tower.
It was a Dark Tower? Yeah. That's like my wife saying, what's that movie with Aaron Brockovich? I go, Aaron Brockovich? Remember, I think they were going to do that too. Remember, they were going to do Dark Tower. I think the original plan was for them to do Dark Tower, and then that was going to roll into a TV series. Dune is apparently trying to make that happen. They've got Dune, although the Sisterhood of the Bene Gesserit is going to be held thousands of years before Dune. But
Another shopping fan.
This sounds like it's going to be feature film that rolls right into a series. Interesting idea. Anyway, Chris, let me ask you this. A couple of questions. Are they taking a risk of maybe overexposing Game of Thrones and the world of Westeros and all that kind of stuff? And what do you think about the choice to do this specific story of Aegon the First? What do you think?
It's a bold story to do a spinoff with TLC about your sister wives for HBO. I love that for them. Obviously, they do have the potential of really running this IP into the ground, but it's what we always talk about. It comes down to character and storytelling. If it's executed well, then it's going to be great, right? You're not going to get, as we've talked about so much today, you're not going to get bored of things if they are done well and done in exciting, riveting ways. If we're invested in these characters, then we're going to tune in. So I think that's key. HBO has been doing a good job, too, I will say, of starting to do something Game of Thrones and saying, you know what, this ain't it. We got to put the brakes on this one. We need to revisit this. We're not going to put out subpar materials that are part of this franchise. So I do trust them when they start mining these things.
Was it Naomi Watts or Michelle Williams who was Naomi Watts?
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who don't remember, before House of the Dragon, they had another Game of Thrones prequel series that they had shot the pilot for and everything, spent over $175 million, I think I heard, and they just said, you know what? This isn't good enough. And they scrapped it.
Yeah.
Never saw the light of day.
But I love the idea to revisit at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. I mean, that's the nice thing. By never airing that, it gives you the option to go back. Because if you put it out and sully it, then you can't really go back to it.
No, and Game of Thrones wants to keep it unsullied.
The Unsullied.
The Unsullied are coming.
Well
Guys,
thank you.
question is for you. What do you think about this? I think it's a terrific idea if they can maintain the quality. And I think the specific story of King Aegon the First coming over with his sister wives and like conquering most of the known realm, if you will. I think this could be really fun. What do you guys think about it? Whatever you think, jump on down to the comment section below and leave us your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's go on to our final story here today. And that is this. You know, without question, without doubt, the Harry Potter franchise is one of the most successful, beloved, and popular movie franchises of all time. And of course, it came out of one of the most popular and beloved book series of all time with Harry Potter. Now, after Harry Potter ended with Deathly Hallows Part 2, they decided to take a swing at the bat and go with Fantastic Beasts. Now, I will tell you, I like the Fantastic Beasts films. I do. But they never felt like the world of Harry Potter to me. And I've heard that from other people as well, that it just never felt like Harry Potter, at least until The Secrets of Dumbledore, when they actually go back to Hogwarts and you're actually there. Then it started to feel a little bit like Harry Potter again. Anyway, we know that David Zaslav at HBO and Warner Brothers really, really wants to be able to dive into the Harry Potter stuff. He's talked about it and referenced it many times over the past year. Well, now, according to a story in Bloomberg, it looks like Warner Brothers, according to the trades, is close to finalizing a deal to doing a Harry Potter reboot series.
You're a series, Harry.
A Harry Potter reboot series. And this would be, for good or for ill, monumental. This would be absolutely monumental. Here's the stuff you need to take away from this. So it's first of all important to point out that they say the deal is close. It is not done, according to the sources at the major trades. It's not like the deal has been signed, sealed, and delivered. It's still in negotiations, and they're still trying to make it happen. But apparently they're getting close. So that's the first thing. The second key point here is that the way they want to approach it, according to the story, is that each book will be an entire season. So whereas with the Harry Potter movies, each book, other than Deathly Hallows, was represented in one movie, they believe there's enough story there to tell in each of the books to do a season based on each book. Also, J.K. Rowling would not be the showrunner of this, nor would she be credited as the creator of the series, but rather she would have creative input, which, I mean, she is the creator of the entire world of Harry Potter. So her having creative input I would go so far as to say, probably completely necessary. Also, the series would be for HBO Max, or whatever they're about to change the name of HBO Max to. I think they're changing the name to Max, which is completely idiotic. That's a terrible name, especially with the name HBO being so iconic and so identified with quality programming. Absolute idiocy that they're changing the name away from HBO. But whatever, that's a separate thing. It would be destined for HBO Max. And lest any of you have the temptation to do what I actually did myself, which was, it hasn't been long enough to do a Harry Potter sort of thing. The movie's turning, the first movie came out almost 22 years ago.
How dare you?
I'm sorry.
How dare you?
I'm sorry.
No.
But it's true.
I hate it.
All of it nearly in November. It'll be 22 years since that first Harry Potter. And I understand it feels like it was last week, but 22 years. Listen, there is going to be, when you go down this, there's going to be a lot of, okay, let me tell you what I like about this first. Then I'll get into some things that maybe give me some pause. I like the notion of expanding out on it and taking each book and making it like an 8, 9, 10 episode season, about 100 pages. So, I mean, there's content there to be mined. Also, with the success of Hogwarts Legacy, is that what the game's called, Hogwarts Legacy?
Mm-hmm.
Hogwarts Legacy, the game, which my wife is loving. I mean, there's a lot of story you can tell around there. And you can even expand beyond the core 3 characters and do something really, really interesting. So I like that. I also like the idea of just getting Harry Potter back on the screen. I think that's going to be something that will intrigue a lot of people. All right. There's the other side of the coin, though. I have said that you could be looking at the first $3 billion film in history if they could go and get the original cast back and do another Harry Potter movie. Harry Potter, they're now adults, all that kind of stuff. You go back and get Daniel Radcliffe, Emma, Rupert, you get those 3 back and you do another one. I am telling you, you are potentially looking at the first ever $3 billion film. But are Potterheads going to be open to the idea of a Harry Potter on screen who is not Daniel Radcliffe? And as somebody who is not a Potterhead, I don't have the answer to that. I know as a non-Potterhead, I'm completely open to reboots and restarting something and trying to tell a story again, maybe in a little bit of a different way. I'm totally open to it. But will the hardcore Potter fans be against it? Or could it be something like a House of the Dragon situation, where a lot of people who were kind of pissed off at Game of Thrones because they didn't like the final season and said, the new show's going to suck. If they put it out and it's just really excellent, will it win people over like House of the Dragon did? Though aren't exactly the same situations, granted, but I think there's a principle in there. I don't know. Listen, lest we forget, as much as everybody praises and lauds Last of Us, remember when they first started making it and they casted Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey and all that kind of stuff, the narrative online about Last of Us was very negative. It was like a lot of people went down a YouTube rabbit hole about how this show's going to suck and blah, 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 blah. But it came out, it proved its worth, and it became a global phenomenon. I have no doubt that if this goes through, that you're going to hear a lot of backlash at first. Then the question will become, if they make it excellent, like up to HBO standards, will people come around on it? Like we saw with House of the Dragon, like we saw with Last of Us. Again, not apples to apples comparison. I acknowledge that, but I don't know. Chris, I think most people are like, we're all very open to the idea of new Harry Potter content. Is going back and redoing the books in a series format the way to do it? What do you think?
I mean, I don't think so. Because it doesn't feel like it's been 20 some odd years. It feels very, very present, especially because these actors are still working and we see them, right? And so I think maybe you do the, hey, if we could get all of them together, let's explore Harry being an Auror and go into like wizarding law enforcement and all of that stuff that they do after Hogwarts. You go back and you revisit the Marauders and do stuff about, James and Sirius and do those kinds of stories that really there's a lot of room to flesh those out. I just think too, this whole bit with HBO being like, well, JK is going to be like kind of involved, but not really, is them trying to kind of placate both sides of people who either don't mind JK Rowling or are firmly against her. It feels very wishy-washy about, she's kind of involved, but not really, so maybe still watch our show. And that just seems like a very flip-floppy stance. I don't know. I don't think people would really like this, but I could be wrong. Maybe they could do it really, really well. I just feel like doing it as a series makes you go, oh, hey, these books are pretty similar throughout. Man, why do they keep sending kids to this forest? And they really should check their basement. This is negligent.
Okay, but let me ask you then. Let's say what it seems like you and I both think would kind of come about here, which is an initial pushback, right? I think there's going to be a lot of people who are Harry Potter fans that will initially, what would you think they could do to win those people over? Like, I mean, the one thing I think of, obviously I've already said, is that if the show comes out and it's just purely excellent, but is there anything else that they could do to get, like, in the probably 2 years it'll take from when they officially announce it to when it actually comes out, to get people on board with it? Or is it just something they're just going to have to take the online backlash until the show comes? I don't know. What do you think they could do?
I mean, I suppose you could do some fan servicey kind of casting, have Tom Felton play Malfoy Sr., have them come back in and kind of do some different roles here, have them play the different professors or other side characters and see how that kind of works with folks. But I do feel like it's a little... It just doesn't seem like the right move. I don't know. And again, I just feel like people are in this place with the IP itself of just not being big on Potter right now. At least that's my viewpoint of it. I was somebody who grew up with the books and the movies, and I really, really loved them, and I appreciated what they were for me as a kid and everything. But I just don't need to participate in that IP right now. That's how I feel.
See, here's the thing though. That freaking game came out and it like shattered all kinds of records. Like I think and with the 20th anniversary thing they put up on HBO, I mean, again, as a non-Potterhead, it seems to me like the passion for this Potter universe is as hot as ever. I mean, with the game sale numbers and all that kind of stuff, it seems like there is a hunger for it. The question is this the dish they want to feed their hunger with? And I ain't so sure that it is or not. It's going to be interesting to see how this transpires. Guys, question is for you. I think most of us agree there's a big hunger out there for more Harry Potter content, but do they want a rebooted Harry Potter? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe it's what they need if they think they need it or not. Maybe it's a terrible idea. I'm not sure. Whatever you guys think about this, jump down to the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. All right, guys. With that down, we are now going to go over and take your questions that you guys have been sending in to us at our tip link, which is simply at streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip. You guys don't have to wait for the show to send in your questions. You can send them in anytime 24/7 there. Now, before we get over and start answering those questions, we're going to take just a second and thank the sponsor of today's show, Ryan Reynolds and his company, Mint Mobile. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Mint Mobile. If saving more and spending less is one of your top goals for 2023, why are you still paying insane amounts of money every month for your phone bill? Switching to Mint Mobile is the easiest way to save this year. As the first company to sell premium wireless service online only, Mint Mobile lets you order from home and save a ton with phone plans starting at just $15 a month. You guys know I made the switch over to Mint Mobile a while ago. The process couldn't have been easier, and I can't believe that I am spending less than a third of what I was spending on one of the other major carriers before. By going online only and eliminating the traditional costs of retail, Mint Mobile passes the significant savings on to you. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and switch easily in minutes with eSIM. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode of the John Campea Show. All right, guys, with that down, let's get over to your questions now and hear what you guys have to say. Let's get started here. Chris, what do we got up here first?
A $20 tip from Ray
Oh,
Edmond.
thank you, Ray Edmond.
Thank you. Hey, John, Shazam 2 flopped.
Yep.
Will The Flash flop? With lackluster DCU films, how long before WB cuts James Gunn? Remember your comments years back, Reboot Superman, Henry? You said WB F this up, they'll be set back for years.
Yeah.
It's happening. You're GOAT.
Well, it's not happening. I mean, it's 2 years away from even coming out. So, well, first of all, look, how long before they cut James? James Gunn had nothing to do with Flash. James Gunn had nothing to do with Black Adam. James Gunn has nothing to do with the upcoming Flash movie, other than, you know, get out there and try to promote it. James Gunn has nothing to do with the upcoming Aquaman movie. We're not going to really feel the effects of, you know, remember I said this when Bob Chapek took over at Disney, which was, you're not going to feel the effects right away. Like when you have that type of a change up at the top, it's going to be a year, 2 years before you start to feel it. We're not going to feel the actual effects of James Gunn and Peter Safran taking over Warner Brothers until 2025, when Superman Legacy comes out. That's when we're going to feel it. If anything, the struggles that things like Black Adam and Shazam and maybe Flash are having just reaffirm that they needed to change things up and get new leadership in and start this process, a process they honestly should have started a couple of years ago. This is something they should have done a couple of years ago. But of course, AT&T was owning Warner Brothers at the time, and they completely botched it. And now it's under the control of David Zaslav. So all the recent failures and shortcomings of Black Adam, Shazam, we'll see what happens with Flash. Listen, if Flash is $1 billion film, James Gunn gets no credit for that because it ain't his movie. He's the head of the studio, yeah, but he wasn't the head of the studio until after that movie was shot. So he gets no credit for it. But, you know, you can't lay any of the failures of Black Adam or Shazam or whatever at James Gunn's feet either, because it's not his film. He had nothing to do with it. So, no, he's saying now it's a different story. Let's say now we fast forward to 2025 and Superman Legacy comes out and it makes $18 million opening weekend and the critics hate it. That will not be a good start. Now, you do not overreact and go, well, one movie didn't work, therefore everything's doomed. No, only an idiot would think that way. That's the way Warner Brothers used to think. They used to be super reactionary. But, I mean, if Superman comes out and it totally flubs, it's just, you don't pull the plug right away, but that wouldn't be a good start. Listen, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say, and I don't mean to put any undue pressure on James Gunn, but he's got to bring it. I mean, this is really important. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. You got to come out of the gate, and you got to come out of the gate strong. And I think James Gunn knows that, which is why he himself decided that he was going to direct it. You got to crush this first one. The boat is not sinking if it sucks and flops, but it ain't a good start if they don't. So yeah, that's where we're at right now.
I gotta point out too, because we were talking about CinemaCon and I'm teaching one night. Is that okay if I still go? I'm definitely missing the Flash, and I think it's the funniest thing.
Is that when your teaching thing is when the Flash is on? Oh
Where I
my
was like,
God.
Of course it is, because everyone's like, I can't wait for Chris to have to sit there and admit this is a movie. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to see it still.
Are you serious? That's the actual time that your appointment is?
That WB panel that's like a special presentation is 4 to 6, which is exactly when my class is.
Oh man.
Wait a minute. I don't think the Flash screening is during the WB
You don't think so?
presentation.
Okay.
I think it's a separate thing.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's separate.
Yeah, I think it's a
Because I
separate
was
thing.
looking at the schedule, I was like, this is the funniest shit I've ever
Oh
seen
my
in my
God,
life.
that would be so funny if you couldn't actually go. But I think I'll look at the schedule later,
Okay.
but I'm pretty sure the WB panel is at one time and that the Flash presentation is a different time.
I was just like, oh man, they still aren't going to
Oh
get
my
me.
God, that would be so bad if that was the case. All right, what's next?
From Bright. Hey, John, about to turn 23.
Hey.
Oh, what's youth like? Just started my own business about 4 months ago. I'm proud to say it's my full-time job now.
Nice.
You have any advice for countering ageism? I try to let my work speak for itself, but sometimes I get very ridiculed for being a kid. Ooh.
I would say this. You answered your own question. Let your work speak for itself. If you start your career going down the path of, I need to come up with an answer for the bullshit noise that people around me want to make, you're going to spend all your time focusing on that instead of focusing on what you're doing. Your work will speak for itself. You know, I've spent my entire career, going on 20 years now, that I could have wasted my time listening to bullshit of people around me. Because listen, whether you're into sports broadcasting, music, whether you cover shoes, whether you cover video games, every single industry has this. If you're going to do something, then there are going to be a lot of people who can't do what you do, who are going to stand around and ridicule you. And whether they're going to pick on your age or they're going to pick on whatever, your hair, your education, your whatever it is, you're always going to have the people who wish they were you and maybe jealous of the fact that you're 23 years old and already owning your own business and already kicking ass. But but when you're not 23 anymore, it's going to be something else. Mm-hmm. And they will always be there. You really, and I learned this very, very early on, I don't give a shit. And you know what? I read this great poster once. It was just on one of these tacky posters, right? But I remember it made a real impression on me because the way I always thought about it is do not care about other people, but do not care what they think. Care about other people, but don't care about what they think. But I read this one poster that has always stuck with me. It sounds silly, but it really meant a lot to me when I read it. It said this: what other people think of you is none of your business. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking about, so here's the thing. If people, the ageism thing, if people looking down at you because you're in your 20s, guess what? Mike Tyson, how old was he when he won the heavyweight title? 19?
20?
20? 19, 20? Okay.
20.
So then they say he's too young. He's too young. Guess what? They can say that the whole time when he punches them in the mouth and they're falling to the mat, getting knocked out. They can keep saying, he's too young, he's too young, he's too young. And he's falling down. Just keep swinging for fences, man. Keep knocking him out. Because at the end of the day, if you say you want to let your work speak for itself, let your work speak for itself. Because at the end of the day, it's the only thing that shuts people up. Right? Success is the greatest mouth shutter in the world. So don't worry about people looking down at you for age. But I would say this too. Be aware that you are just 22 right now. And so that there are probably some shortcomings in your game right now that you will acquire more over time. And that's fine. But success, letting your work speak for yourself, it is the ultimate mouth shutter. And because nothing else, anybody else is going to talk about you, about your age, you know what? They're not worth engaging with. Ignore them. Doesn't matter. You do you. Put out the best thing you can put out, whatever your business is, and let your results speak for itself. All right. What's next?
From Mr. Gux. What if MCU gets softly rebooted after Secret Wars?
No.
That would help introducing X-Men in ways that feel more organic. Also, you'll get new Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, new MCU 2028. Maybe a new MCU every 20 years?
So you're not really asking, well, what if they reboot? You're asking, is it a good idea for them to reboot? At some point, the Marvel Cinematic Universe will have to reboot. At some point, it just does. And it will at some point. Is that some point in the next 5 years? I don't think it is. It wouldn't be a bad idea, though, because, look, hear me out. The reality is, Tony Stark's now gone. Well, let's put the two, not just one, the two most important and most popular characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe are gone. Steve Rogers, played by Chris Evans, Tony Stark with Robert Downey Jr. The two most important characters, the two most important performers, they're gone. You've gone through those stories. They've pretty much screwed up Hulk at this point. They lost their T'Challa. And this cinematic universe has been going, like, when did that first Iron Man movie came out? I can't even remember the year it did.
2008.
What's that, 2008?
Like 2008.
Right? So this is a cinematic universe that's been going for 15 years. At some point, you just got to say, okay, let's go back to the beginning and start again and tell new stories. But I don't think it's any time in the next 5 years. And while it would provide a really interesting opportunity to create a world where it makes sense that the X-Men are in it, because that's going to be very challenging for right now, how they're just going to suddenly introduce X-Men and mutants into this world. But I think at some point, yes. Is it going to happen anytime soon? I don't think so, but we'll see. All right, what's next?
From Jesse Has a Turtle. What stops movie theaters from charging more on tickets so they can make a higher profit? Is it because of contracts set up with the studios, or just to avoid the risk of competition with other nearby theaters, or just something else?
It doesn't matter what they set their ticket price at. The studios get a percentage. And that percentage will float with the cost of your ticket. The other problem, too, is right now, one of the biggest, no, not one of, I think it's safe to say, correct me if you guys think I'm wrong, the biggest deterrent of people going to the movie theaters these days is cost. So yeah, you can be a movie theater and say, okay, look, we're charging $15 a ticket. We only get to keep $5. All right. Well, let's boost the ticket to $30 a ticket so we get to keep 10. Okay. Sure. Boost your ticket price to $30, so now you get to keep $10 instead of $5. The problem is you've now scared away 40% of your audience who do not want to come to your movie theater and pay $30 a ticket. Anything in business, you're always going to try, you've got to find that line. It's a very fine tightrope that you're walking when it comes to how much can I charge to make profit on whatever this is, versus how much is charging too much that I'm actually scaring away potential customers. And where is it? Anything over free is going to scare away some customers. Anything under a certain amount is going to cut into your profit, but you got to find that middle ground where I found that price point where not everybody wants to get it, but enough are, and I'm making a good and movie theaters got to do that too. So what stops them? Needing to keep their audience is what stops them. Good question. All right, what's next?
From Eddie Burton. Curious, is James Gunn rebooting the DCU going to be insanely expensive due to pre-existing deals actors had to start and future projects DC has lined up? I would assume. People like Cavill, Godot, Momoa had pay or play clauses in their contracts, right?
Nope. DC and Warner Brothers notoriously got their ass bitten by a pay or play contract with Tim Burton. When they tried to make the Superman movie that the legendary late great John Schnepp made a documentary about, The Death of Superman Lives, what happened, Tim Burton had that contract, which means they had to pay him out in full, even though they never made the movie. Now, some actors will get those deals, but the vast majority of the time, like when you hear that, say, Don Cheadle has a, has a 5-film contract, right? With Marvel. What that means is, if Marvel wants Don Cheadle to play Rhodey in 5 projects, he's got to come and play that role. What it does not mean is that Marvel has to use him. So I keep freezing on the guy, the name of the guy who played Rhodey originally.
Terrence Howard.
Howard, thank you. I almost said Terrence Stamp. Yeah, Terrence Stamp was the original Rhodey. Terrence Howard had a 3-picture deal, but that did not mean that Marvel had to use him. It just means he had to play the role if they wanted him to play it. So even if Momoa, Cavill, whatever, if they had 7-picture deals, they do not have to pay them out if they decide not to do those movies. Now, each individual contract could maybe have in them certain stipulations, like hey, if they cancel the movie within 3 months of it, you have to pay out a little bit of a penalty because we kept the schedules free and all that kind of stuff, whatever. But for the most part, no, it's they don't have to pay those actors regardless. They just don't have to use them. All right, what's next?
From Anonymous. Hi, John. Do you think James Gunn announcing his slate and rebooting DC Universe has affected the box office for Shazam 2? In my opinion, it has. Why invest your time and money in something that's being discontinued?
I get asked this a lot, but I'm really quite firm on this. Absolutely not. Had nothing to do with it. Had absolutely nothing to do with it. And I'll tell you why I believe it had nothing to do with it. 3 particular reasons. Reason number 1, the vast majority of the average movie-going audience is completely oblivious to what's going on with the drama behind the scenes of DC right now, that the DC universe is rebooting and all that kind of stuff. 95% of the movie-going audience is either not aware of it at all or really doesn't care. So that's factor. Now, in our echo chamber of people who make and watch shows like the John Campea show, oh, sure, we all know about it and we all talk about it, but we are, as we've gone over many times, we're like 5%. We're maybe 5%. So that's the one thing. The second thing, and not the most important thing by any stretch, but the second thing is, if that were true, nobody would ever watch an original movie because, hey, if there's not a sequel, why watch it? I often bring up Goodfellas, one of the greatest films of all time. But are you going to say to somebody, if you haven't watched Goodfellas already, don't bother watching it. It just ends after the first movie. There's no sequel. It doesn't go anywhere. So there's no point in watching it. No, that would be ridiculous. That'd be ridiculous. Shawshank Redemption, don't bother watching it. They just end it. What happens after he gets to San Juanejo? I mean, we're not going to know what happens after he gets to the beach of San Juanejo. No, it's a movie. We go to the movies for good movies. But the most important reason why I do not believe, and I think it's completely nonsense, why I don't personally believe that them say rebooting is what caused flap, is that then you have to explain Black Adam. When Black Adam came out, nobody knew there was going to be a reboot. When Black Adam came out, everybody thought Henry Cavill was coming back as Superman. When Black Adam came out, that was not the case, and yet Black Adam flopped. So if you're going to say it was because, if you're going to say Shazam 2 failed because, they're rebooting things, then you got to explain Black Adam. Because that had the biggest movie star in the world with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. That had announced that Henry Cavill was coming back as Superman. That was the movie that was not only not rebooting the DC cinematic universe, it was going to change the hierarchy of power in the DC universe. And it flopped. So if rebooting had nothing to do with that flopping, why are we suddenly making up this excuse for it affecting Shazam 2? Look, I mean, at the end of the day, we're never really going to know for sure. And I can sit here and listen, when I give my opinion, I will always sound sure. But listen, the fact of the matter is we'll never really know, neither will I. But personally, 95% of the audience doesn't care that the universe is rebooting. Number 2, we go to see movies for a good movie, not about where it goes 5 years from now. And number 3, you're going to have to explain why Black Adam flopped because they came out relatively close to each other. You can't say one had all the impact on one movie and yet had no impact on the other. And so that's why, no, I don't buy that theory. I think it is much more damaging. I think the reality behind it is much more damning, which is the fact that the bad reputation of DC films and the general failure of DC films to get high audience scores and high critic scores and do potentially successfully well at the box office, which with a few exceptions, it just catches up to you. And it has. And that's why Black Adam failed. And that's why Shazam 2 failed, even though I like both of those movies. Again, just my opinion of it, but you asked for my opinion. So there you go. All right. What's next?
From Sam Fisher, don't even get me started on Doctor Strange, and that little nerd on Earth 199999 is a direct reference to No Way Home. Earth 199999 is the MCU's official Earth designation.
Oh, I didn't know that. I had no, I mean, I thought maybe it might be that, but I've never heard the 199999. I've never heard that reference before. The trailer is great. And I have a feeling if we sit down and actually go through that trailer, like frame by frame, we'll probably pick out like 1,000 Easter eggs.
Oh, yeah.
Like I didn't particularly notice because I was just kind of focused on Miles and Gwen, but I cannot wait for this movie. I so hope they play it at CinemaCon. All right, what's next?
From Alan Renshaw, Scarab, whatever you imagine, I can create. Jaime, give me the Final Fantasy sword. I loved all the Final Fantasy and Kid Elements and Blue Beetle, and will definitely be seeing the movie.
I thought it was just me. I'm like, my God, that looks like
looks like a
Cloud's
Buster
sword
sword.
in Final Fantasy. I played a lot of Final Fantasy.
Which one's your favorite?
7. I mean,
yeah.
I know that's the stereotypical answer, but that's the one I played.
That
Yeah.
game's magnificent.
You can get a Final Fantasy sword in Assassin's Creed Origins.
No, really?
Yeah, you have to. There's like a puzzle in a pyramid you have to solve, and you can get that.
I mean, of course, that is the most impractical weapon in the history of video games. No one could carry that thing around, but it does look awesome. All right, what's next?
From Austin, hey John, with a collection of disappointing and in some cases poorly constructed Disney Plus shows, should we not have higher expectations for studios who have very deep pockets and connections to the best creators and storytellers in the world?
To a degree. I mean, look, I think one thing that I've been guilty of this myself, I think all of us are guilty of this, including me. Sometimes we forget just how difficult it is to make good art. And while having a lot of resources at your disposal is certainly helpful, it is definitely helpful. It's definitely an advantage. But it does still not take away from that core thing that making good art, there's a moment of magic that takes. And we as film fans, including myself, are often guilty of just forgetting how difficult it is to create art that makes an impression on people and delivers that experience because there's no formula. If it was about formula, then yeah, as long as you got the money, you can purchase the formula and everything you crank out is going to be great. It's still at the end of the day, an artistic endeavor that is difficult. And yeah, you want, hopefully with your resources, you're working with the best people and you get the best writers and the best directors, but you know, sometimes the best writers aren't available because so much content is being produced these days. Sometimes the best directors aren't available. Sometimes they just don't want to do the types of things you're doing. And sometimes you can get the best person in the world doing it and it still doesn't turn out great. That's the nature of art. Should we hold, the companies that make art to a certain standard? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean we forget that it's still ridiculously difficult for them to do it and we shouldn't expect something great every time they do. So, resources, it doesn't actually answer all the questions a lot of times. And even when you have resources and try to put them to the best use, it does not guarantee you're going to end up with a good product. It's just, again, it's that little bit of pixie magic. All right, what's next?
Brian O'Connor, one of two. I loved Batman vs. Superman, but felt it was a creative flop. I was never convinced that a veteran Bruce had any real reason to have any conflicts with Superman. Black Adam ended his film as a hero the same way Superman did in Man of Steel. The most annoying part of the whole Black Adam Henry Cavill situation to me is that I know they were never going to have a satisfying Black Adam versus Superman narrative that made real sense. That idea, that DOA for me. That idea was dead on arrival for me.
I have to completely disagree with you about never believing that Batman had a hate on for Superman. Listen, I don't think Batman versus Superman was the greatest movie. I really enjoyed it myself. Personally, I really enjoyed it. But, it's not on my list of greatest top 10 comic book movies or anything like that. But the opening of that movie, replaying the events of Man of Steel when the Kryptonians and Superman are fighting each other and the world engine is going and all that kind of stuff. But then showing it from the perspective of Bruce Wayne and having Bruce Wayne hearing his friend die on the phone when he's on the other end of the phone with him. That guy was his employee, but clearly he was a friend of his too. And then getting into the streets, Bruce running into the chaos as everybody else is running out. And coming across a little child who has just lost her mother. Listen, again, Batman vs. Superman is not one of the greatest movies, but I contend in terms of scenes in the comic book genre, it is one of the greatest scenes ever shot and filmed. When Bruce takes the young girl in his arms and he wants to save the day. He wants to save her. Where's your mom? And he understands this little girl's mom is dead. And then Ben Affleck turning his head, the cinematography and every choice in this scene is so utterly perfect. The camera then switches to kind of an overhead shot looking down on Bruce holding the little girl as the action is going on in the sky, and Bruce's head turns to the sky and Ben's eyes come to meet the camera, and that look of rage. Remember, Batman Bruce Wayne is a protector. And if you want to get on Batman's shit side, you hurt the innocent. And as he's sitting there holding this little girl who just lost her family, he had just listened to his friend die on the phone. He's looking around at this chaos and destruction, and he's looking up at the sky at a god. And then the camera comes in on Ben's face. And that, again, the word is rage. That rage you see in there. I'll tell you what, for me, the rest of the movie, I had no qualms that Batman felt he needed to take that Superman guy out. I had no qualms with it at all. I thought it worked beautifully. Now, it's a different story a little bit altogether when you're talking about the Black Adam thing. I mean, now, yeah, you're just trying to set up the immovable force against the unstoppable object. I get that, and it's not nearly as compelling. Absolutely not. But as far as Batman versus Superman goes, I'd be lying to you, brother, if I didn't tell you that really worked for me. I thought that was very well done. Anyway, all right, thanks for sharing your thoughts, man. I appreciate that. What's next?
From Daniel B. Hi, John. Given that WB is eyeing a TV series for Harry Potter years before Fantastic Beasts 2, David Yates revealed at a college event they hope to get Gerard Harris as a young Dumbledore with his history at HBO. Do you think he would sign on? Jared Harris, excuse me.
Would an actor want to take on a popular role? Sure. By the way, he was I mean, we were talking a lot recently about Chernobyl. Oh, God, how good was he in Chernobyl? So good. By the way, he's also a great Moriarty. Mm-hmm. That's one of the reasons I want to see a Sherlock Holmes 3 so badly. I really hope they find a way to bring him back to play Moriarty. Anyway, yeah, I mean, you could. There's something poetic about that. I think that goes to what you were talking about earlier, Chris, about how maybe they go back and get Felton to play, Lucius
Malfoy.
Yeah, the dad Malfoy. You go out and get Richard's son to come in and play Dumbledore. You could. That's might be a little disrespectful to Gambon. Is that how you pronounce his last name? What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah. A little disrespectful to him, who did a great job stepping in and playing Dumbledore after Richard Harris passed away. But Harris's son, who is a world-class actor in his own right, I listen. Maybe a little disrespectful to Gambon, but I would be down for it. I would watch it if they did that. I don't know. Good point. All right, what's next?
From Zeos. Hey, crew. It's Tuesday, my only day off, and I'm going to have sushi with a wonderful woman for lunch, then a double feature of John Wick and Creed. Everyone, please have a good day. Ooh.
That is a good double feature. I mean, you can leave the girl at the sushi restaurant. That's fine, but that...
Rude.
I'm just spitting facts here. You want to have a good day? You go see John Wick 4 and Creed.
Abandon a woman, and you'll have a great day. John Campea.
I'm just saying you have the potential for the day to be screwed up if you got another person tagging along. You want a guaranteed good day? You go to see Creed 3 and John Wick 4 by yourself. Now, listen. Movies.
Well, you know what? If she's paying, then he's screwed.
I stand corrected. Listen, movies are experiential events and they're best shared. So yes, I hope you have a great day, man. And that does sound like you got a good one lined up. I do not like sushi though.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
You're a very particular eater.
I'm a very vanilla eater. Mm-hmm. I'm a very boring eater. I really, really am. Yeah. But that is. All right. What's next?
From Jake G. What are your thoughts on Ashley Johnson as an actress? I think I have a celebrity crush on her. She's great at voice acting and doing live action, is musically versatile and beautiful. Plus her involvement with Critical Role.
I'll be honest with you. I have a very, very limited exposure to Ashley Johnson. And it's to two things. One, the one scene she's in Last of Us, which, God, she kills it. Holy crap, she kills that. The other was in a TV series called, what was it again with the actress?
Blind Spot?
Blind Spot. Thank you. As you said, they actually played Lady Sif, Jamie Alexander. She was a supporting character in that. She was one of the team, and I thought she was really good in that. I'm not super familiar. Obviously, playing Last of Us, you could hear her voice as Ellie and all that kind of stuff, and I love her voice in Critical Role. But those are the only two things I really have as sample sizes for her as an actress overall. But I certainly have liked what I've seen her in. Are you familiar with much of her work?
Yeah, I first knew about her from Recess, where she was voicing Gretchen, and she's Mel Gibson's daughter in What Women Want.
Oh my God, is that her?
Yeah.
Wow.
I had no idea. How old was she in that?
Oof, I don't know. She's playing like a 16-year-old or something like that. Yeah. Because I will always remember that scene of, I can't believe this is going to be what I'm wearing when I lose my virginity, and him being like, what the fuck? No.
All right, is that it?
Yeah.
And guys, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here and making this show part of your day. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in those tip questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. Number two, you supported this channel as you did it, and all of us involved with the show. Thank you guys so very much for your support. By the way, if you sent in a tip question just in the last little bit and didn't see it get read, don't worry. We'll just carry that over and read it on tomorrow's show. So guys, don't forget to come on back and join us for tomorrow's show. Keep your guys' eyes open for the channel a little bit later tonight, as I'll do my Out of the Theater reaction with Ray about Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers. Going to see that tonight. Very excited. Of course, we're going to talk about the new episode of The Mandalorian tomorrow as well. Make sure you guys come back and join us. So for everybody in the room, Ray Ora, we got Taylor Gonzalez back there, very still happy, glowing about the Shrek news. Jonathan Voico running the show, Chris Carr, and most importantly, you guys have been here. Thanks so much, guys. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye. Oh, my gosh.
Haters will say it's Photoshop.
Oh, my